works out of different India offices. We have four of our sites. One is Bengaluru, second is in Noida, then we have presence in Pune and Hyderabad. And these sites, they have strong competency from SoC design to software and firmware. So almost every single functional domain have presence in one or the other sites of India. And as you can see, we have 800 plus patents which are done out of the NXP India office. So that talks about the kind of depth and breadth of technological edge we have at NXP. A smarter world starts with us. These are the domains we work in: automotive, industrial, mobile, communication, smart city, smart home. So anything to everything, in the top-notch market, we have one or the other presence. I'm not going to bore you with many of the NXP slides, but I just wanted to give you an overview of the organization I work for. So this is one of the main slides for today, that the macro trends driven ways for semiconductor growth, how the semiconductor industry is shifting. So in 2000s, so I have put them in three brackets: 2000, then 2010, then 2020, and what we can expect in 2030. I'll be covering in the next slide. So in 2000, the major focus was on laptops, desktops, mobiles, gaming, etc. getting introduced, and they kind of pointed the whole decade. Fast forward 2010. The phones became a smartphone, the television became a smart television, refrigerator became a smart refrigerator, the oven became a smart oven. So all the smartness got into, and then certainly a huge push on tablets and data centers. Fast forward 2020, we call it as the era of cloud and edge. Edge with AI. Smart connected devices, smart connected buildings, homes, cars, and whatnot. I'm going to talk more about cars in the upcoming slides, but edge with AI is something where the most of the world solutions are moving. Because first is we want to process at the edge. We don't have, I would say that we don't have enough patience to fetch the data, send it to backend compute, do the compute, generate some, I would say next action and send it back to the device. We want to process everything at the edge because we want zero latency. And second thing is with the AI. Once you extract some data, we want AI to be in place to find out, what makes sense to us, and quickly, take action based on that and move forward. Quick example. Let's take example of artificial. I would say edge AI example is autonomous vehicle where there's no driver sitting inside the car, and there is a situation on the road. The car has to identify the situation, find out what would be the next action, and implement that action before the blink of your eye. We'll be talking more about those in the upcoming slides. So the next slide has more details, but by 2013 we will have more than $1 trillion dollar plus economy when it comes to semiconductors. And this slide, one of the reports published a couple of years which hold true, that by 2030 we are going to hit 1 trillion, 100 billion plus market. And as you can see, these growths, this growth in these 10 years are expected across different segments. And if you see, the large part of it is coming from computing and the data storage and the communication, wireless communication. A huge chunk of this is coming to be the automotive electronics. That's where we have a strong hold at NXP. And certainly then there are industrial, there are wired communication, there are consumer electronics, etc. But that's where most of the focus is, and that's where most of the companies in this particular segment they are investing in. So let's move forward, talk a little about how our world is changing. And that's one of my favorite slides. That many things are changing, many things are getting shifted. We are more online. Professor Tripathi mentioned that there was an option to present stuff online. Okay, we have learned that way because no one was thinking about this 10 years back. No one thought of that. A upper KG or lower KG student would attend a class on MS Teams. And in Delhi, we still see that frequently. Whenever there is a pollution, schools are closed, and you get to the online mode of education. The smart gadgets, especially on the healthcare side of it, are getting a lot of traction. Certainly we want them to be smarter, we want them to be minute as possible as much, and we want them to live for a longer life without any recharge. Okay? Ideally, I would say that I would like to see a phone in my lifetime which I buy off the shelf and I don't need to recharge it for the rest of the life. That is possible. One is certainly, how do we get that energy? Second is, how do we consume least of the energy? Next picture here, COVID has taught us how to be effective, how to do our business, how to study or do whatsoever, still being 6 feet apart. And these all smart gadgets are, enabling us achieving that. Everything is, someone was telling me that mobile phone has eaten up a lot of our stuff, from our wristwatch to calculators to cameras to notebooks to everything has now been bundled as a part of this tiny mobile device. Even your wallet, you can do digital payments. You guys know about NFC, near field communication? Anyone in this room? I want this to be interactive. Anyone of you know about NFC, near field communication? Tap and go. Your cards, all of your ATM or credit debit cards, your access to many of the metros, the tap and go thing. So almost every single metro card, if you're using in India, there's a high probability this is going to be an XP product. Almost we have a big, close to 100% I would say, but a huge market share. Similarly, all your tap cards, most of it, I'm sure more than 50% of that market is with us. You have this smart access to your cards these days. You need to plug in a physical key. There's a key sitting in your pocket. There's a little advanced version of NFC, we call it as ultra wideband. So ultra wideband has a, I would say a better range and very good precision. Into few centimeters, into plus minus 5 degrees, this ultra wideband technology can pinpoint where exactly the key is sitting in your lower pocket or upper pocket or not. And based on that key, it will give access to turn on your engine. This is something I have practically experienced. Robots to deliver food or grocery or your orders. I would say it's getting more and more common in the western part of India. I've seen a lot of them back in Austin and San Jose. And certainly again, this is an example of NFC, making your payment, or even if you want to exchange your mobile numbers, you just tap. Nowadays, one of our mobile, I don't want to name the vendor, but if you want to upgrade from one phone version to the other one, you just keep the phones all together. You need to go and take a backup of your phone, because this all works using Bluetooth. So all these things have changed in last 1 decade, and most of us have experienced it. At the same time, our mobility is also changing, the way we commute. Any first example of mobility in this room? The very first mobility someone might have experienced? What do you think? What was the very first way to, move from one place to other place? Come on guys, I know you had good food, you're a little sleepy, but let's be interactive. Any guesses here? पहला मोबाइल मोबिलाइजेशन का मीडियम क्या था? एक जगह से दूसरी जगह जाने के लिए? Animals. Good. I remember my grandmother told me when she got married, my grandpa, he traveled for 3 days with the whole chunk of villagers, and they took them 3 days to reach to the the girl's place, and then they had some good rest with their horses and this bull carts for next 3 days, so that they are fed well, because they need to again travel back for the next 3 days. What else? Any other example come into your mind? The very first way to, go from one place to other place. Modern tech, we know all the vehicles. पहले Aladdin का चिराग था. There was a flying carpet. So that was our imagination that one would be able to move from one place to other place. And all those imaginations become a reality, because when there was a black and white television, people thought of, okay, would we have a television which would have, our actual physical attire, all the colors, and then the color television got, invented. When we used to have this mobile phone, I remember one of my first phones, early 2000s, we used to pay 12 rupees to receive a call. For making a call, to receive a call, we used to pay 12 rupees. And this used to be a big Motorola phone for me with a little antenna on top of it. And if you get a call, you used to think thrice, it's an unknown number, should I pick it up or not? Okay, and then we were thinking, oh, what if this becomes 1 rupee only? And here we are, we have fixed rentals. Rather you get a Wi-Fi, you can make, still communicate. Similarly, for mobility, many things are changing. Any guesses what you see on the screen? First car. Anyone else? Which year this was done? There's no wrong or right answer. Just raise your hand and show me your guess. Tricycle. But which year this would have been done? 1905? Okay. 1905 or 1895? 1905. I'm good at confusing people. So it was actually in 1896 by Carl Benz. And if I'm not wrong, on 29th of January, this guy applied for a patent for this particular car. And by mid of the 1896, in July, it has a physical, movement on the roads. So that was one of the very first car about almost 140 years back, 139, 140 years back. But how this mobility is shifting? Now we have this, complex gadget, and this is getting more and more complex day by day, because many different features are getting embedded into it. And if you look, it's full of stuff, even it's full of wiring itself. Any guesses, what would be typical length of wires being used inside a car today? I want to hear something from my left, only these guys are speaking. Come on guys, any guesses? The length of a wire being used inside an automobile, inside a car these days. I want to give this opportunity to the left audience first. Anyone in this row?
10
Kilometers. You guys, come on. You're not going to get a chocolate from me for a right answer, or you're not going to get any penalty for the wrong one. But it goes into kilometers. Not exactly from a few hundred kilometers, that's something which we use in space rockets, but it is in kilometers. Any guesses the length of this whole wire harness inside a car? I'm not going to come to you guys, you speak a lot. Any guesses here? No Google allowed. Is it in some grams or kgs? Extreme right. In kgs. How many kgs? 5, 10, 15? 10 kgs. Excellent. So it can go as high as maybe 100 kg. Okay. So what if I make this car as a smarter car? Instead of having different 100 functionality, if I give them a big powerhouse to do all those compute, I can reduce this wire harness weights, and the less the communication time, the better the efficiency is. Okay, let me move forward. So shift in mobility. Okay, paper leak ho gaya kya? Okay, I wanted to ask another question here. How many semiconductors are typically there inside the car? Just raise your hands. This time I don't want others to. Someone other than these guys, they are speaking about. Any guesses? How many number of semiconductors are sitting inside a typical car these days? Give me at least, ones, tens, hundreds. 1,000. Any other guesses here?
So it's somewhere 100 to 200 in an economical car.
100 to 200 in an economical car, okay? But these days we see a huge trend. If you are following automobile these days, there's a huge trend of SUVs in India. Every damn player is coming up with one or the other SUVs. So we are trying to, certainly we have a segment for the, average economical car, but now people want more and more luxury inside the car, more and more functionality inside the car, more and more comfort inside the car, and more and more safety inside the car. Safety has become from an optional to a mandate, because we can pay a little more dollars and kind of still afford it. Yeah, so someone was right here. An average vehicle today has about 1,000 plus amortizers with about $640. Don't go by these figures. These figures are anyways from I think 2022. Certainly this figure might have changed now. And we expect this to go beyond 1,200, number of semiconductors with BOM, bill of materials, about 1,200 plus dollars. And if you really talk about the same number of semiconductors, say 50 years back, this was a single digit number. Because we never had that power windows, we never had power steering, we never had infotainment, we never had huge lighting inside the car, we never had airbags or braking system, etc., etc. So what all these semiconductors are, they are sitting inside this particular car. There are a hell lot of them. Almost every nook and corner there is a semiconductor or electronics sitting inside your car, from different sensors to different compute unit when we talk about ADAS, which I've covered in the upcoming slides. And this all is making this typical car into a complex structure. There's no more mechanical device. That's what I was talking to the Vice Chancellor sitting next to me on the dais this morning, that I feel semiconductors is a must to have subject irrespective of the engineering stream you pick up. Because it's no more only limited, semiconductor is no more only limited to electronics. We need a huge part of software along with the hardware to make that work, because only the piece of silicon would not help. I need the firmware on top of it to make this work. And we want these software engineers to understand the semiconductors. A mechanical engineer, which they used to, design a car, needs to now understand semiconductor, because car is no more, internal combustion engine. We are moving to electrical vehicle. Let's forget about electrical vehicle. Even if we go to a typical car, we want to get to an autonomous vehicle. Again, the whole science of semiconductor would get into the picture. Let's talk about civil engineers. We expect them to create a smart home, a smart office space, or a smart auditorium. They should understand the sensors. If they don't, they can't make smart homes. They can't design them or kind of install them. If we talk about a chemical engineer, they also need to know about this. There's a huge stuff happening within biology or chemicals domain. There's a siren in the room. All well, ma'am? That's okay. Thank you. So there's a flip side to this technology as well. Before you learn how to use it, people know how to misuse it. Okay, so typically we prefer, our location services to be on in our smart gadget. I'm not fond of smart watches, I prefer analog one. So if there's a smart, say a smart watch which you are wearing, or a smartphone with location services on, and if there's a smart hacker who can get into your phone, they would be knowing, okay, I'm inside Bhopal now. Even if I take the very first flight, it's going to take a couple of hours for me to get back to my home. So they have a safe haven to, get into my home and have a fun of life. So with every technology, certainly there's a flip side of it as well. So let me move forward on this particular topic. Automotive, accelerating the road to vision zero, and there are many kind of vision zero we are targeting. Let's first talk about autonomy. Autonomy is the driverless car we talk about. And there is a study which says that 94% of accidents are from human error. So if we remove this human from the car, we can save 94% of lives. That's millions of humans. if if I don't have a human error while we are driving. How it is possible? It's possible using ADAS. Anyone in the room who knows about ADAS? Excellent. So it's automotive driving assistance. That means the driving would be done by autonomy instead of human. And there are different levels of autonomous vehicle. I can spend half a day talk about those levels, but I'll try to quickly summarize them in next 2 minutes. Level 0 is our typical car. A human drives a typical gearing system, etc. If you go to level 0 to level 1, you have some feature these days in your car which we call as cruise mode, okay, wherein you fix the speed and your car would run with the fixed speed. If you go to a little advanced version of it, it will have a say radar in it, and it would be able to detect the car in front of you. And if let's assume the car in front of you is going at 50 kilometers per hour, and your cruise mode says 60, it will not hit 60, it will fix the speed till 50 only because this car is not going to bump into the next car. But if you go to level 2, along with this cruise mode, you have the lane detection as well. So there are longitude control and lateral control, both of the control gets mixed. If we get to the level 3 of it, in that case still we need a driver inside the car, but the car would be able to get to the autonomous I would say level, and the moment the system feels that it is hitting the limit, they will give enough time for this driver to take control of the vehicle so that you don't end up hitting anyone. But now if you go to level 4, where a predefined use case, the car would be able to run at its own. And we talk about level 5, where we don't need anyone sitting on the driver's seat. There will be a seat, but no one needs to manually I would say watch the system, or be alert all the time that if something wrong goes on, this guy would take control of the car. So those are the different levels of autonomous, where huge research is going on. Next is electrification, zero emission. Certainly we want to get rid of the internal combustion engine. We want to go into the EV. And what probably the other day someone was telling me that we'll get rid of this whole fuel, petrol and diesel, but we might have a pile of or hill of batteries. And the other concern which I have with EV is that the energy, the electricity which I'm using to charge these EV is being produced by burning coal. So we should have a green way of energy first. But certainly it's going to make our life a little simpler. And then within EV there are different levels, level 0, 1, 2, 3, 4. The highest one is the one where you need a external plug to charge your vehicle. The simpler one, one kind of one are the one where we have in many of Indian cars, where with your braking the battery gets charged. Okay, you don't have any external plug to charge your batteries. Certainly, I would say a good motivation to get to a better environment to live in, but there is huge research going on, and there is I think huge scope still in terms of optimizing the battery life. I've seen many companies investing, well, how do we optimize the battery life, or probably the battery size. And the third area is how do we optimize the charging time of the battery. Do we really want to spend 2 hours getting our batteries charged up, or do you want to spend the same number of say couple of minutes, maximum 5 minutes, which we typically spend on a gas filling station, and we want our batteries to be charged up within the same time? Because there's still a fear, that if I take my EV for a long ride, what if I'll get a next charging station or not? The next one in line is connectivity, zero time wasted. And this is a segment which we talk about, V2V, V2X, vehicle to vehicle communication, vehicle to infra communication, where one car is talking to the other car already before when they are on the lane, that okay, I'm gonna come in. Let's take example of a junction where there are 2 cars coming from the rectangular angle. Each one of them already are communicating, and they know which one will cross first, which one will cross second. But again, there are challenges. There are still use cases in our typical Indian scenario. There is a, let's assume there's a poly bag in the air and there's no driver sitting inside the car. The car now needs to understand, if this poly bag hits my windscreen, is it going to hurt me? Or if I hit this object, am I going to kill a life? So those kind of, decision making has to happen, and you need to find out the coordinates, you need to see whether there's life in this or not. Okay? Things like, I'll again give you an example. That is, let's assume there's a case study. Typically talk about case study that there's an elderly guy on the road, there's a pregnant woman, and there's a young children. And the car needs to be, there's an autonomous vehicle, and the situation is such that the car needs to hit one to save the other two. So which one the car should hit? Okay, how do a car get to know this woman is pregnant? There are two lives instead of one. And we just can't conclude that someone is senior citizen is good to kill. But then there are other topics like, typically in India scenario that you're on the road, the car is on the road, there's no driver in it, and there's a cow and a buffalo on the road. Which one you'll hit? A cow or a buffalo? And that depends on which state you're driving this car. Okay, because your state politics dominates. So there are many ethical angles to this. It's not only the electronics, and that's where AI ethics comes into the play. Okay, so with all these good secure cars, there's one quick topic I want to touch upon when we talk about security. There are two things: safety and security. We call them synonyms, but they are not at all synonyms. Safety is something different, security is something different. And when we talk about particularly automotive, there is a functional safety. We call it FUSA. ISO 26262 compliant. So functional safety, and then there are different level of this functional safety. We call it SL level, SL A, B, C, D, and they go on with different rules, because there's a human behind the wheel. So, typically, let's assume you put up a toy and this toy is not working on day one, you can still live with it. But if you put up a car and your, air bags or a braking system is not working on day one, you can't think of. And the other thing is reliability of these products. Because when we buy a product, typically a car, minimum for next 10 years, you want to use it. Last night I was having a dinner talk with one of the gentlemen. He's here in the room, busy doing something else. We were talking about a typical shirt life, in a typical home, Indian home. And we said that, if you get a new shirt, you buy a new shirt, you go probably wear it in some wedding. And after the wedding season is over, after a few weddings, we will start wearing that for, some good occasions, maybe, office parties, etc. Post that, you will start wearing that as a regular office shirt. And after that, you will say that, okay, I'm going to use that while roaming in my sector. And then you will say that, okay, it's enough. I'll now only wear this shirt inside my home. If I'm stepping out, probably I'll change. And then we talked about, I told him this scenario. Then the shirt is again getting into a bad condition. We'll say that, okay, in winters I'll wear it, below my sweater or a jacket. Because anyways, you guys are going to see the collar, you don't know where is the hole in the back. And once that part is even done, we will start using it for dusting. Okay, and you'll use it for a better level of dusting, cleaning your tabletops, etc. And once that part is again lived, then you'll say that now I will use this to clean my car. Okay, so that's the typical life of a cloth in a typical Indian family. And here we are talking about 20-30 lakhs worth of a car. We are going to use it to the damn end until unless government makes it mandatory. But we want this reliability of this particular vehicle to be there till it is end of life. And that's where things become much, much, much more complex. So there's a backup of every backup when we talk about such functional safe systems. So there's a good joke I'm recalling. Someone got 2 pairs of tickets traveling in a bus. And this guy asked, why the hell you have bought 2 tickets? He said, what if I lost my first ticket? Then I have another secondary ticket, sitting in the lower pocket. And this smart gentleman said, okay, what if, somehow you lost the second ticket as well? So he said, जो जो पास रखा हुआ है ना, वो उसी दिन के लिए है, कि जब पहली दो टिकटें घूमी. The same goes into, functional safety, that if one system fails, the other will kick in. At the same time, let's assume the second system fails, we will design it in such a way that the car should come to a safe state before it comes to a halt. At the same time, we don't want to make our solution really bulky, having, to think of every component. So you need to, smartly play this particular game. Okay, so comprehensive system solutions with safety and security built in, be it autonomy, electrification, or connectivity. And again, good view of sensors in the automotive application. I'll probably skip in the interest of time, but as you see, there's a hell lot of sensors sitting inside the car. Major technology vectors for any smart device, that's why it is sense, think, connect, and act. First, you need to sense what's going on. Then you need to process on that particular information. Then you need to connect back and act based on the information. Okay. The typical example you might have seen 2 months back when we had a good little conflict with our neighboring country. We sensed, we connected, we acted and destroyed it before this particular object hits us. Same thing goes, in any of the smart gadgets. And we have multiple solutions around it, from cloud infra to enabling technologies to, edge solutions. These are the different solutions at NXP we offer. I'll fast forward first, and this is an important slide to talk about. I can spend hours and days talking about car infrastructure or architecture, but quickly, the vehicle transformation is underway from hardware-oriented vehicle, which is different functions sitting in different part of this particular cassette. Functions are tied by ECUs. It has a static architecture and exponential increase in the complexity. The more new system comes in, new feature comes in, the complexity goes high. So the future car would be software-defined vehicle, SDVs. That's where huge investment is ongoing. So we want this car to get into a new avatar as like your mobile phones. The moment you have a new operating system plugged in, it has a new avatar, new look and feel. It's as beautiful as ever. So for SDV, typically what we say at NXP is that when you buy a SDV, a software-defined vehicle, that's in the, I would say, worst shape. And the more you keep on using, the better it gets to. Because you're going to add up features with the time to it. Top-ups would happen. I'll give you an example. Again, I'm going to name this company. So they have sold some, thousands of pieces of cars to different customers in the different part of the world. And after a few months, they realized that, what if I increase the ground clearance by, say, 3 mm? Probably the car would become better. Okay, the drive experience would become better. So in typical car, what you will do is you will recall all these cars to the nearest workshop, and they will do some mechanical stuff to elevate your car clearance to 3 mm. But this car, they decided, pumped in the software, next day morning, every car has 3 mm more clearance. So that's what the level of, SDVs we want in the times to come. And as you keep on using it, the car will keep on learning from the personal user experience, from the road condition, from your style of driving. Because each one of us are unique human on this earth, and each one of us have our own preference or the driving, I would say, habits. So those SDVs would learn from you and become more and more customized for your users. So let's say there's a car, let's say I'm sharing a car with one of my family members. I'm the shortest one in my typically cousins. Okay, so if my other cousin comes in and he wants to take my car out, so he would keep on adjusting the seat, I would say the front clearance or the up and down or a steering situation, or the different cushions inside the car. And the next day morning, if I want to drive the same car, I'll have to spend 5 minutes getting to the back view mirror just to my level. But if I was starting, I'll say, okay, breathe mode on, everything gets to my preferences. So that kind of things we want. Now let's say I'm sitting here in Bhopal and my car is parked at my home, and one of my friends wants to take my car out. And I say, well buddy, the physical key is with me, you can't help it. But I can send my car key through my mobile to this guy, and he or she can simply open the car and drive it. So that's the kind of vision, and that's something which is practically possible with the technologies we have in hand these days. So functions can be anywhere in the vehicle, flexible architecture, simplification of implementation. We want the powerhouse to be sitting inside the car, and this processing should be so strong that even if a functionality which I'm not aware of today gets, I would say, processed or gets created in next 5 years, my processing should be strong enough to get that patch loaded inside the vehicle and start enabling those features. Brighter Together, that's our tagline back in NXP. I'm going to spend some time because I see most of the crowd here in this room is from the academic background. So as head for innovation ecosystem for NXP in India, there are a few initiatives which I drive related to university, so I want to quickly introduce them to you, and if you're interested, just get in touch with me and I'll be happy to help you with any questions. So Brighter Together, brighter with our customers, brighter with our academic partners, brighter with our vendors or suppliers. So one of the initiatives for universities is NXP Campus Connect. This is an online webinar we started back in COVID days. This happens on every first and third Tuesday, 5 to 6 p.m. IST. And there's no registration fee to take benefit of this. And lately I got to know that many faculty members are now attending these sessions, because these sessions are delivered by our global experts within India, and at times many of them from outside India as well, about different topics. So we started partnering with different institutes for these sessions. These are bunch of university we are partnered. So what we do is, initially it was all online. Nowadays what we do is we partner with the institute. That institute blocks a room in their institute, and then the room is filled by their local students, and rest guys can still join us online. These are 155 plus speakers who have delivered different sessions so far. Recently we celebrated 100th session a couple of months back. Our CTO Lars Rigger is here seen in the picture along with Hiteshkar, our country manager. We celebrated 100th session, and we had another record on the same day. The number of attendees crossed 30K. We have touched 30K attendees for this particular technical journey in the last 4+ years. And many of these sessions are available online or YouTube. If you missed to attend, you can go and browse them through. These are the various sessions we have conducted in the first half of 2025, and we'll be announcing our calendar for second half on 1st of July. Another good thing I want to talk about, artificial intelligence in mobility. AIM, this is again an annual event of ours, and we've closed the registration on 23rd of June for 2025 session. And I really feel proud that we got close to 5,600 registrations. And the good part of story this year is that we have got registration from every single state of India. Typically, I have seen in the past, we haven't done good job probably reaching to the northeastern state of India, but this year we are glad we have some participation in different states of India. So this is an annual challenge we do. The stats which you see on the slide are from the last year, and since we closed this registration, we sent out the mails even yesterday only, so these numbers are yet to be updated. We did 3 regional finales last year, one in Hyderabad, Bengaluru and Noida. We are going to do the same this year. And in the regional finale, what happens is, I can probably show the next slide. This is what we do. The students, they design on an artificial track, and we select them for the grand finale from these three different regional finales. And to these regional finale winners, we give them a Amber Buggy kit. How do I get to the next previous slide? So we give them this kit, which is $5,500 worth, and then we again train them. Okay, before this regional finale event, we are going to start the training from 30th of June. And we again train them, and they then play around with this hardware. We do a grand finale at our NXP Noida office, where these physical buggies, they compete, and there are 3 lakh plus worth of prizes they win. So these are a few of the pictures from, last year's regional finale, where a physical, these cars, they had a physical race again. Last year our CTO was here from Germany to participate. The other initiative is Women in Tech program, Women in Tech, where at NXP we run this as annual event, and I think 4th of July all these women, they are visiting our campus for the 4th batch. And what happens is there is a selection process you need to apply, then there is a written test, there are some interviews, and if you make it, then you get trained for next 1 year by our training partners, and you get a 50K scholarship, conditions apply, some taxation, etc. But you need not to pay for those trainings, that all is taken care by us. That's again a good initiative. Please pass it on to your women friends in the second year of engineering. Okay, I'll wrap up in the next 2 minutes. Thank you. Okay, I'm going to skip this one. We do another thing, NXP India Tech Startup, where we appreciate the startups from different technology domain. We had 311 applications this year. So if you are part of some startup or in your institute you have those startups, encourage them to participate. My last slide, and that's one of my favorites. Mostly I use this. I am a strong believer in a change. Because when I graduated, I never heard about FinFET, and now I'm working on FinFET technology. So I think the skill of learning, unlearning, and relearning is going to take you a long time. So I'll close with this quote: "Change is the only constant thing." And as the quote says from Charles Darwin, "It's not the strongest of the species that survives, nor the most intelligent one that survives. It is the one that is most adaptable to the change." The more you are used to change, the better careers you can make it. With this, I'll close this call, talk here. Thank you so much for being patient, even after the lunch break. So I've told that the next online session is at 4 p.m. We have 3-4 minutes left. I'll be happy if there are any questions you would like to ask, or else I'll be still around. And I'm going to be here probably sometime tomorrow as well, and I'll be happy to catch up for a chat with you if you have any questions or comments from me. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, sir. I request Dr. Prashant Ranjan, sir, to kindly felicitate Mr. Preet Yadav, sir, with certificate and our conference kit. Thank you, sir. I now request Dr. Sandeep Kumar, sir, to kindly take the charge for the further proceedings.
now we have an online session. So just now we have shared the link for the online session. Although the session will be on here also, I request you to join via mobile. Okay.
There's always the background. Okay.
So, okay, so with your due permission, shall we start?
Yes, we can.
Okay. So, good evening, all the respective faculty members, guests, and attendees. I will warmly welcome you all. Today, you have We had a great sessions given by some great speakers. So now we have Professor CJ Reddy sir with us, and he's joining us virtually to share experience and knowledge. Dr. Reddy sir is the Vice President of Business Development Electromagnetics for the Americas at Altair Engineering. He was a research fellow at Natural Sciences Engineering Research Council, Canada from 91 to 93. And in 93 joined NASA Langley Research Center under the US National Research Council NRC Fellowship. He developed electromagnetic codes and received NASA Certificate of Recognition. He is a fellow of IEEE Applied Computational Electromagnetic Society and Antenna Measurement Techniques Association AMTA. He served on the ACS board from 2006 to 2012 and 2015 to 2018. He received the Distinguished Alumni Award from NIT Warangal in 2015. He has published more than 130 papers and 18 NASA reports. He was the General Chair of ACES conference in 2011, 13 and 15. He was a co-General Chair of IEEE APS URSI 2014, Memphis. He is a member of AMTA board since 2020. He also serves as Associate Editor of IEEE Open Journal of Antenna and Propagation. So we are truly honored to have you with us today, sir, and thank you for accepting our invitation. So I kindly request you to share your slides and you can start.
Very good. Thank you very much for this kind invitation, and I'm happy to participate. Can you hear me okay?
Yes, sir, we can hear you.
Okay. Very good. Very good. Thank you very much. And thanks again for inviting me to give a talk here. Let me share my screen. I think you can see my screen. I suppose.
Yes, sir, we can see.
Okay, very good. Thank you very much again, and I appreciate inviting me to this conference. I think I've been speaking, I guess, for a few years at this conference, and thank you very much again for inviting. So today's talk, I'm going to focus on the role of electromagnetic simulations in commercial product design. As already mentioned, I am the VP of Business Development for Electromagnetics at Altair. Before we start my talk, you all probably know that I'm currently the President-elect of IEEE APS Antennas and Propagation Society, which is playing at least in my life, I think played a critical role in guiding my career and also helping me professionally and also personally with networking and other aspects. So for students in the audience, I advise that some of you or all of you, I think, if you are interested, first of all become IEEE members and then become Antennas and Propagation Society members. I just want to know from my own history. I would like to let you know that I was a student member back in when I was in college in NIT Warangal, and then afterwards at IIT Kharagpur, I continued my student one. The reason why I was at that time attracted to IEEE back in old days was because IEEE was providing, I would say, classes, I guess, I would say courses that are beyond what is taught in the class. That helped me a lot. Just for the sake of memory, I will show you a couple of certificates I got at that time. Microprocessors were very hot at that time, so we were learning machine, not machine learning here, like we say now, but machine language. So instead of writing in Fortran and other languages, we could write directly to the microprocessor, that's CPU language, with the resistors and those kind of things. Also, programming was becoming popular at that time, so I took a course on Pascal at that time. So, of course, at that time, you had to do all these things. Right now, I guess I'm speaking to you from far away, right, in the US, and being able to communicate with you all. And same as from your side, you can communicate with me as well. So there is no reason why, I guess, one cannot take advantage of the benefits of joining IEEE, as well as joining Antennas and Propagation Society, and to take advantage of these resources that we have. Yes, I want to let you know that as having come from India, I guess I always thought that Acharya Jagdish Chandra Bose contributed to the millimeter wave communications back in 1800s, and I think some of the recognition coming a bit slowly. So this year I contributed to this award to say that APS should introduce this, and right now there is an award by APS, Antennas and Propagation Society, in the name of Acharya Jagdish Chandra Bose for a best paper in antennas and wireless propagation letters. That for an young professional, that is who graduated within 15 years of age, could get. This will be awarded first time next year, but there's still time. I think some of you want to write papers to AWPL. You may have a chance to win the award in the name of Jagdish Chandra Bose. That said, if you're a student member, you can join for I think less than $1 now. But I think at this time, I think till August, I guess you can join for 50 cents if you're already an IEEE member. But if you're also not following what's happening in Antennas and Propagation Society, follows on LinkedIn. This is, I think you can scan the QR code or follow the link that I provided here. With that said, let's get back to our keynote here. That's the role of electromagnetic simulations in commercial product design. I mentioned that I work for Altair, but let me give the outline here. I guess we go for electromagnetics and antennas to start with as an introduction, and then talk about a little bit about computational electromagnetics and go through how computational electromagnetics help in various industries. All the ones I listed: consumer products, automotive, defense, aerospace, healthcare, and education as well, and conclude my talk. As I mentioned, I work for Altair, but Altair has been acquired by Siemens. That probably you all heard about Siemens. So now we are part of Siemens, and we're not yet become part of this division, but eventually we'll become part of this Siemens Digital Industries software division. So that's the transition in my career that's happening currently. So coming to electromagnetics antennas, and most of you know, if you're studying electromagnetics, you're not new to Maxwell's equations. So any of these antenna simulations that we do, whether with the commercial tools or otherwise, should start with Maxwell's equations that we stated here, the four of them. Of course, these are called as the second great unification in physics, after the first one by Isaac Newton for his laws of gravity. So taking advantage of Maxwell's formulations, Marconi started this transmission of radio waves from England to Canada back in 1901 with a 500-foot antenna. The reason why he used to use 500-foot antenna was because it's at a lower frequencies in megahertz or kilohertz, like our AM/FM radio type of thing, which required a big antenna to transmit from there. But at the same time, Marconi was very entrepreneurial. He started this company called Marconi's Wireless Telegraph Company. Later on, it has been renamed as Canadian Marconi Company. Now, of course, it's still in business, called CMC, the short for Canadian Marconi Company in Canada. And of course, they're now modernized. They do all sorts of things for aircrafts and other platforms. At the same time, in 1800, we already talked about Acharya Jagdish Chandra Bose. He was doing experiments not at lower frequencies, but at millimeter waves. But you now remember, millimeter waves now are hot again with the 6G being the buzzword nowadays. We have seen 5G. Now we have come to 6G, where the millimeter waves are the key for the communications. But back in 1894, Jagdish Chandra Bose already demonstrated that you can generate millimeter waves through igniting a gunpowder and ring a bell at a distance And then he wrote in a Bengali essay called Adrusha Lok, the invisible light can easily pass through brick walls, buildings, therefore messages can be transmitted by means of it without the mediation of the wires, which, we are living that dream right now, that, we can communicate with no wires, right? We have wireless communications everywhere. Though a bit late, I think in 2012, IEEE recognized the Bose's experimental work on millimeter radio as an IEEE milestone in electrical computer engineering. Probably, if you go to Calcutta, there is a trust by J.C. Bose Trust, and they have, his house is preserved and all his inventions. Not just this one, I guess. He worked on various other sciences as well, and probably, when you go to Calcutta sometime, please do visit that his museum, I guess, by J.C. Bose Trust there. So from those humble beginnings, antennas today, as you already know, on cell phones, tablets, of course, our cars are becoming more and more connected. If not already, it's almost like an electronic device. Less, of course, still it has to get you from point A to point B, but more importantly, it's also be able to communicate continuously with connectivity and those kind of things. And 5G, this was a vision 10 years ago. Now I think it's slowly becoming a reality. Smart homes, I think now they're also reality. And of course, Internet of Things. That's where everything is connected to everything type of thing. So whichever industry you go to, aerospace, automotive, defense, communications, consumer energy, no matter where you go to, you find antennas there or electromagnetics there. Of course, that also brings the question of education, that students like yourself and faculty should be teaching electromagnetics, and students should be learning. So there are a lot of job opportunities in every industry you go to. If you know Maxwell's equations, you know how to design antennas nowadays. So, of course, nowadays, no one is solving Maxwell's equations to get on paper to get any of the solutions you need. So this is where computational electromagnetics come into picture. So what is computational electromagnetics? You have on the left-hand side the realistic objects that we have, like anything you can take, I guess, cars or ships or cell phones or anything, any of those realistic objects, and then you solve for the Maxwell's equations, and then you get currents and fields like what I'm showing on the right-hand side. But to do this on paper, actually one can do this, if you can solve partial differential equations and be able to, get a solution on a paper. But unfortunately, to solve the partial differential equations, you have to know the boundary conditions. What that means is that what happens when the electromagnetic energy hits a surface. Will it reflect? Will it transmit? And how much it will transmit? And so on and so forth. What happens to the electric field? What happens to the magnetic field? This is what we call in electromagnetics courses. Probably you'll learn the electric field boundary condition or magnetic field boundary condition. But you can, maybe if you're a genius, maybe you can do this for one shape. But you go to the next shape, then you have to rederive the equations. That's where the computational electromagnetics tools come into picture, the popular commercial tools. But I use, from my company, I guess we use Pico, which is the commercial tool that's available. So they can, solve the Maxwell's equations internally and can produce these currents and fields. How do they do that without having to know the geometry equation of these ones? They split the geometry into small parts of known shapes, and at those shapes they solve for these Maxwell's equations and then combine them. Let's see what it means. I guess you have a realistic object like this one, let's say an aircraft, and you have an antenna on the top of the aircraft here. And so how do we solve this in a commercial tool or any computational electromagnetics? Is you build first the CAD model of the aircraft and also place an antenna on the top of it, and you split that into small parts like these triangles, these small triangles that you see here. These are known shapes, so Maxwell's equations can be solved in these shapes because it's a known triangle at a place. Then once you solve for each of them, then you add them up to find the currents on the surface. And once you find the currents on the surface, then you can find the radiation pattern as I'm showing here. Now, it becomes easier than, solving the Maxwell's equations for the whole geometry at once. For example, you take the car, you do the same thing. You make a CAD model, you discretize or you mesh it with triangles, and then you find the currents and you get the radiation pattern. Same, you get the drift, I guess, here, that now you can take any things like this. And here is a little antenna that is a bicone, the monocone antenna here. And then you can solve for the currents and you can get the radiation pattern here. So typically what happens in a communication system, wireless communication system, is you start with a transmitter with a data source. This could be, like, for example, we are speaking here. I'm speaking to my speaker. That is the the voice is the data source. And that data source is converted, encoded for privacy, and then modulated. The modulation means you take the low frequency signal, electrical signal, and add it to a high frequency solution, the frequency wave, because that way you can actually have an antenna that is small enough to transmit it. Otherwise, you have to go by the wavelength divided by 2, and the kilohertz, it could be, large antenna type that you cannot accommodate in your cell phones and other things. So normally they modulate it 2.4 gigahertz, for example, or a 5.2 gigahertz. So you can have a smaller transmitting antenna. Then you characterize the channel, and then you go to the receiving antenna and demodulate it. That means you bring down the frequency, decode it, and then you hear, if it's a voice or the data you're sending. So what is the channel? Channel is something that comes between the transmitting antenna and receiving antenna. For example, you're talking on the cell phone, and the cell phone signal, your data source, that is your voice, to be encoded, modulated, and transmitted to transmitting antenna, travel all the way through your walls around you, but also the vegetation and others, till it reaches the base station. So that process is normally referred to as channel. That is between whatever comes between your transmitting antenna to receiving antenna. So that's also an important aspect of the communication system. So what we're dealing with here is this portion. This is the antenna portion, transmitting antenna, receiving antenna, and this is a channel. This is characterized by propagation models. Optically for our society, antennas here and the propagation here. And this is also covered in our Altair antenna simulation solutions. Altair FICO, this is used for antenna designs and antenna install performance. Anything that relates to antennas and their performance on platforms. And then WinProp, that will take care of this channel properties or channel characterization through wave propagation, radio network planning. So this is the antenna side on the top, and then the bottom is the propagation side. Both play a critical role in wireless communications. So how do they work together? You start with an antenna design. This is the blade antenna on an aircraft, and you make a CAD model. You create you simulate the radiation pattern, which, like a monopole pattern. This is the omnidirectional pattern that you see. Very nice one with no ripples, and it's a radiation pattern. But you're not going to use it just like that, right? In the free space, you have to put it on somewhere. In this case, you put it on a helicopter like this, and you see the radiation pattern changes from what it is on the left-hand side to what is on the platform, which means that if you take the ideal case, it is supposed to be receiving equal power around 360 degrees when it is receiving, and when it's transmitting equal power in all directions, 360 degrees. But once you place on the platform, it is not able to, for example, this bump here, it will transmit more or receive less signals, receive well in this bump. But when you look at the null, it receives less signal or less sensitive, but also less transmitting power here. Can we optimize it to get to this one? Maybe not, because of the shape of the platform we have. It's almost impossible to get to what we have. We can maybe try to minimize it. But even then, a simulation can help you understand what a system designer should do. Maybe you should use more transmitting power if you want to communicate through these nulls. Or maybe the system should have more sensitivity, receiver sensitivity, so that it can receive signals through these nulls. So this can help them before they can make the thing and install it on the aircraft here. But then this is still not good enough. You can take it to a real scenario like this one, where the aircraft flies through this flight path and there's a ground station, and you can actually compute the power that is received when it is flying in this one. So this is, antenna part, the pico, and the propagation part is done by WinProp here. Same thing with the for a cell phone, for example. You can simulate the cell phone, you can simulate the base station, and then you can put that into a larger scenario like a city and see how the connectivity can. This is what we call channel characterization. Your base station is here, and your cell phone is somewhere here. What kind of signal you can receive, and what goes in between those two things. And you can do the same thing in indoor as well with Wi-Fi router. And of course, you can do that access point optimization within the buildings and so on and so forth. That's, of course, the broad picture of what computational electromagnetics can do. Now, let's see what people are doing. These are also some of the customer examples, I guess, that we picked up from various sources that I want to show. Starting with the consumer products. What's the most used consumer product nowadays is a cell phone, right? So this is, of course, LTE smartphone. This we published in a micro journal back in 2012 or so. So one of the things in a LTE is the MIMO, that multiple input, multiple output. That means you have multiple antennas on the cell phone, but they all act independently, meaning though they're close enough, they don't couple to each other. So that's a key thing, I guess, you need to look at when you design antennas for the cell phones. Is when you design for this multiple antennas, they should look like they're independently operating. For example, there's no current in between these two antennas, but also the isolation is less than 10 dB. So not only that, you can integrate the antenna into the cell phone, but also see its performance when you're using it. For example, in this case, on your ear. At the same time, there are concerns about the safety of using the cell phone. That safety factor is measured by what is called SAR, specific absorption rate. Every country, has a standard, and US had a standard for measuring a SAR in 1 gram cube volume. So you can do that simulations as well. So make sure that the antenna radiation is not affecting any of the human tissues and those kind of things, and also complies with the standards of a particular country where the cell phone is used. So now you take that and put into an indoor scenario here. Of course, this is showing study between a 2x2 MIMO. That means MIMO basically means multiple input, multiple output, as we mentioned here. That means you have multiple antennas on the transmitter side, multiple antennas on the receiver side, so they can receive various signals. I'll illustrate that in a few minutes, what that means. So more antennas you have, the better reception you can get, because there are, you can think of, you have more ears or more eyes, so you can see better and hear better. Same thing on the urban environment in city. If there's a base station here, how does the power is received when you're going through this route here? So similarly, one can do the same thing with the tablets. which are a little bit bigger, so you can use broadband antennas, but in a again, multiple antennas. I guess here there's one here. There's another one in a different direction there. You can also simulate the base stations, and the base stations, those antennas, they actually move up and down based on the traffic, and that can also be simulated within the software to see what happens. Because now we are all talking about 5G with evolution going from 1G to 2G to 3G, 4G, and 5G here. And through this evolution, we also saw that before that, I guess, let me see, why do we need 5G? And because this is back in 2020, discussions were going on. This is because of the fact that, the data consumption from the beginning of the internet back in middle 80s, I guess, to now has grown tremendously, and it's been growing continuously. I guess this is back in 2020. They predicted that it's going to be 4.3 zettabytes of data consumption. Zettabyte means 10 to the power 32, which you can imagine, how much we're consuming data every day. I don't have to mention that, because we use that every day in our lives. So here, also at the same time, the phones, the devices that we use, also evolved over a period of time from what it used to be in 83, for example, this one with a big one here, and they started to shrink, and of course they also now you see that from 2002 onwards, you don't see any outside antenna like this one here. They're all embedded within the cell phone, like I was showing earlier in the design of the LTE antenna. So why 5G is better than 4G, and how is it able to capture more data than 4G can do, or maybe more data than 2G and 3G can do with respect to LTE, is that back in 1G, 2G, and 4G, 3G, there's only one antenna that has this omni pattern that we talked about before. That means it can receive signal in this direction very well, but if you flip the phone, it may not receive the signal properly in that direction. Now, to avoid that, they started with LTE, what is called MIMO, which we talked about earlier, multiple input, multiple output. So you have one antenna like this one, the second antenna like this, so that whichever direction the signal comes, you should be able to receive it. And, like that, as I said, multiple ears, right? So whichever way the sound comes, you can hear. In this case, whichever way electromagnetic signal comes, you can capture it. So what happened in 5G is that instead of having this 360-degree pattern, which, looking for the signal all around, they made this into a focused beam. So this focused beam also now with multiple directions for diversity sake. But then this, is looking only one direction, but then it has to scan to get multiple directions. Let's say there are people around, various signals that are coming. So electronic scanning, but also spatial scanning, I guess, time division multiplexing. So it can receive the signal. Same thing happens on the base station side, a focused beam that's actually pointing to the device. So this means that both the base station and the mobile device has to be scanning all the way, looking for the signals and lock onto the signals for better communications. That's how they were able to increase the data rates. So of course, with those applications, with increasing data rates, multiple applications can be done. So that's about a little bit about consumer electronics. Now in the automotive sector, automotive, as I already mentioned, is becoming the as an electronic device as any your smartphone and those kind of things. But interestingly, in the automotive, any car you drive, you have devices that use in kilohertz range all the way to 77 gigahertz range. And the lower end, the key fob that you use actually uses kilohertz frequency for operation. And the high end at 77 gigahertz, you have the automotive radars that use that frequencies. So why do we need simulations in automotive industry? Like any other industry, you start if you don't have the simulations, you start with your textbook design formulas, and then you fabricate it, and then you take it to a chamber like this. As you can see, this chamber where antenna radiation patterns are measured, huge, right? It's very expensive to build this one, but also expensive to do these measurements like they're showing here. Taking the car itself into the chamber and all those things. It's also time consuming. So if you find some problem, then you have to repeat the whole thing again, and that iteration can take for a while and would be very expensive and time consuming. This is where simulations can help the industry to find out what's the best way to design and what's the best way to place these antennas into the car so that they can operate properly as needed. For example, they want to put a receiver for the key fob inside the car. Instead of trying to do that by hardware, they could simulate the car, put the receiver somewhere, and of course simulate the key fob with the human body, and to see how the signal can communicate to the receiver, optimize the receiver location so that they can, when they go for testing, they found that that simulations and measurements agreed quite well. That means they can use the simulations to make sure that receiver is placed in the proper location and make it faster to the market. Also, nowadays most of the cars, if not all the cars, have what is called TPMS, tire pressure monitoring systems, that actually can tell you when the tire pressure is lower in your car. But the problem with that is you have a tire pressure sensor that has to communicate wirelessly to the dashboard. That's where your receiver for the TPMS system is sitting in there. And what that means is that you have to make sure that every tire, all the 4 tires, are able to communicate properly to the dashboard. But also, when they're rotating, the signal is also being all 360, because you can't put multiple things there. You could put one sensor there with the transmitter, and that when rotating, this is the signal being received. You can see that at some rotation angles, signal may be missing the minimum level that need to be received, but maybe it's okay because it's only one angle, I guess. But at least you know what happens before you actually put the sensor in there and do your measurements. Similar experiment here with the simulations, and see how much power is received at the receiver from the tire pressure monitor system here. Also, electromagnetic compatibility is becoming a critical issue with all the, even more so with electric vehicles, with high voltage lines running along with the signal lines in automotive industry. This is some of the simulations they do to emulate their testing. For example, they take the car into a EMC chamber and then use an antenna, broadband antenna, subject the car to various power of the electromagnetics, and then see if anything fails within the car. And that can be simulated as well, so that you don't learn after the measurement than during the design process of the car. So another aspect that's happening in the automotive industry is called what's called virtual drive test. Most of the time, in the past, when simulations were not that prominent, so if you put a cell phone antenna or, for example, GPS antenna on your car, the car manufacturer would drive through various roads and find out whether the signal is being received or not. But now, with the simulations, when I play this video, hopefully it will play well. There is this car here in this location. It will drive through this road here all the way to this place here. And then you can see an antenna is transmitting here with a good signal where the red is there, and the shadows, because of the buildings here with the blue lines, you see the shadows moving. So you know where the signal is being received, where signal is not being received. So let me play this short video. You can see the car is moving all the way to the other side, and you can see the shadows move. So this is kind of one example of doing simulations with a virtual drive test to find out whether your antenna location on the car is working properly or your antenna design is working properly before actually putting the antenna on the car, designing the antenna and then putting on the car and physically driving it, which again could be very expensive but also time consuming. Automotive radars are also becoming popular nowadays, or if not, every car may have automotive radar to make sure we are safe. That also can be simulated in this is the WinProp, I guess, the software that we have. You can actually simulate multiple cars and then see. These are actual calculations done with ray tracing, how the signals are being reflected off of the various vehicles, giving you the Doppler shift that you can distinguish between various vehicles that are coming in opposite direction or in the same direction. Similarly, here also another scenario with a bridge, for example. And normally bridges were a problem in the beginning of automotive radars when they were thinking that the bridge is something big that's coming in front of you. But again, through signal processing, they can eliminate that, saying that there's no Doppler shift or there's no. You should be able to relate to Doppler shift, and you should be able to eliminate that from your design, I guess. Of course, we can also include the radar processing. In this case, most automotive radars use FMCW radar, frequency modulated continuous wave, and that can be simulated. So you can see in this chart where these various aspects of the cars and their velocity as well as range can be seen as a heat map there. Of course, going further, you can also do multi-physics analysis. What happens when you're going a bumpy road and your car bumper is moving and then the radar is also moving, and what kind of sensitivity it will have in detecting the objects because of this movement. Defense aerospace always has been very has used, I think, electromagnetic simulations in a long time. This is one of the simulations done by one of our customers from Northrop Grumman with an antenna on the top of this, the various types of antennas, radar, GPS, automatic identification system, VHF, and communications, and so on and so forth. And they can also be simulated. This is again, during the design phase, so you know what's happening and how to position them accordingly. At the same time, we talked about the safety. There are various safety aspects you need to consider. Hazards of electromagnetic radiation to personnel, that is the human bodies, but also ordnance. When let's say if you have a Navy ship and there's a powerful radars on the Navy ship, and they should be, that high power electromagnetic energy should not be, igniting the ordnance, that's bombs and those kind of things, can be very dangerous. Same thing with the fuel. And that can be done with using these ICRNIP levels, and we can actually plot those things here. Where you see the red one, that's occupational hazard, and the yellow one is the public hazard zones that can be plotted. Of course, aircrafts are also have multiple antennas, as I'm showing here, both in the commercial and military aspects wise. These also can be simulated. As you can see here, I think we have seen this one before. And also in drones, I guess, nowadays are very popular. And their performance, antenna performance and coupling can be simulated, and also radomes. So radome is a word that is used when an antenna is covered with a kind of a cover, I guess, enclosed with a cover to protect from environmental effects like rain and those kind of things. And the radome has to be strong enough to protect. For example, in the nose cone of any aircraft, you see a radome there. When you fly next time, you may want to see that there's something different about the nose cone of the aircraft. The rest of the aircraft may be of metal, but the nose cone will be not metal. It's a different type of material that can transmit the electromagnetic waves through the nose cone, but at the same time, it should be able to withstand the wind loading and other kind of things. So we could simulate those things as well when it is scanning for the weather and those type of things, the nose cone. Of course, lightning effects can be simulated, as well as, there was a NASA project that was done sometime back on SANS electrical connection. They call it SANS AC. This is a lightning protector for the composite aircrafts, but also we can detect the damage that is done by the lightning through scanning this structure there. Of course, simulations also are used in the satellite communications, as you could see here with this satellite and its radiation patterns. So the new thing that's coming in nowadays is called digital twin. This is, I picked this picture from a report from the National Academies in the US. So this portion here explains what a digital twin means. So you have virtual representation, that is where we're doing the simulations, and then the physical counterpart. There's a, let's say you take the car, for example, we are able to simulate the car with a CAD model and those kind of things, and that's virtual representation. But then when the car is actually existing, that's a physical counterpart. So virtual representation can guide how the physical part should behave. And then the physical part also can provide the feedback to the virtual side. They give an example of a cancer patient here. This is the digital part or virtual part where you can, let's say, simulate what happens with the drug use, for example, to cure cancer. And that can be, if it is showing positive effects, you can administer on the real patient, and then the patient may have some side effects that can be fed back into the virtual one to refine the virtual. So you can use this virtual representation to better your treatment of the patient. So this actually has been applied in the electromagnetics as well. Recently, there was a paper published from NASA Jet Propulsion Laboratory by Professor Dr. Nezer Chahat and his group. And so they were working on this NASA rover back in 2020, where this rover, probably you heard about it, went to the Mars along with this helicopter, Mars helicopter there. So, of course, this was not a very science mission, I guess. They call science mission because rover, when it goes to Mars, it collects the soil samples and then sends that information back to Earth. Whereas the helicopter was just sent there to see if can we fly in Mars atmosphere, just as an experiment, I guess. There's no collection of data or anything like that. But at the same time, they made sure that the connectivity between the rover and the helicopter can be maintained. And then helicopter, whenever it receives a signal from the rover, it measures the signal, tells how much signal is received, and send that information back to the Earth so they know what they're computing is correct or not. So initially, when they did this earlier, they were using a method called Bullington's model, which is a free space line of sight communication. That means both the rover and the helicopter should see each other for a good communication, which worked well for some time. But then once what happened, when the helicopter went out of line of sight, that is, it's moving away from the rover, where rover cannot see physically the helicopter. At this point, what happened was that the signal they thought the helicopter should be receiving was much less than what they predicted, which means if it is goes beyond certain limit, probably they can't communicate back to the helicopter, and you can't get the helicopter back because you can't give a command to come back and those kind of things. So this is where they realized that they need to have a digital twin. So they constructed the rover as a CAD model in FICO, and also the helicopter, and then use this model here, where this is a virtual representation where they can compute the signal received in long line of sight using WinProp, and they use those path calculations to guide the helicopter to fly wherever there's a good signal that they can get the helicopter back. So here they actually computed the whatever the signal they received from the information they received from the helicopter. They actually plotted that measured power in the black line curve here, and then the wind prop simulations are the red line. So you can see that from almost from fifth flight all the way to 60 plus flights, it agreed quite well. This is the way, this is what they wrote in the paper. To address this, we opted to use the commercially available software WinProp, which is part of Altair FICO. Altair FICO is to model the antenna performance on both the rover and the helicopter. It's crucial to consider rover's presence, as the antenna performance is heavily influenced by shadowing and multipath effects, non-ideal location, and limited ground plane size. And so every time rover moves, these are the 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 locations. Rover is moving through this path, and you can see that at 1, this is wherever the green area you see, this is a safe area for helicopter to fly. Safe area means you can communicate to that rover with helicopter can communicate with rover with no problem. So second location, third location, fourth location. So this way, they know where. Here you can see that the third location, it can fly all the way here. So there's a lot more area they could cover than using those line of sight communication earlier. That's kind of a success story for doing simulations on the Earth and then implementing them in real time on Mars. So the helicopter, whenever it landed somewhere, it took some pictures. And this is actually originally started as 5 flights. And of course, they could do 72 flights because of this new capability of having a digital twin with the simulations on Earth. So simulations also can be used in healthcare. For example, MRI cages can be simulated and designed along with the human bodies. One of the problems with MRIs is that if someone has this replacements, joint replacements with metallic parts, and when you go into the MRI machine, this could heat up, can cause discomfort, but at the same time, at some point, it can be too hot to even damage your tissues and things like that. So those simulations can be done with thermal combined with electromagnetics, but also wireless pacemakers and those kind of things also can be simulated. So that's kind of broad spectrum of various applications in different industries. I'm not covering all of them, just showing some samples of them for you to see that how computational electromagnetics or simulations are playing a role in various products that we use or we're connected with in life. So we offer this free student edition. Some of you in the audience here, if you're students, you can download this from this link, and also you can scan the QR code. Also for even including the faculty and also students, if you want to learn electromagnetics with the software, again here there's a academic hub page that we created. You can not only learn PICO, the antenna design, but also propagation, wireless coverage mapping, and other things with the WinProp as well. Of course, if you don't note down the links now, you can send me an email and I can send you the appropriate links for you. Of course, at the same time, we have published this book from IET back in 2014, almost, I think, 10 plus years ago now, as a education through simulations. This is actually useful in the undergraduate studies where while we are trying to understand the equations, Maxwell's equations, and trying to derive some of them by hand to make sure that we understand the theory. At the same time, it's also useful because nowadays in the industry, no one is solving Maxwell's equations by hand to get to solutions because that would be too cumbersome to do that. So everyone is using commercial tools like FICO, for example, in the industry. So it's also good idea to introduce this a bit early in the education, maybe in the undergraduate studies, so that they can appreciate the value of the simulations, but also understand the theory much better, because commercial electromagnetic tools like Pico, for example, can show you the electromagnetic fields, and you can explain the theory better with those visualizations than just by equations. So this is actually an antenna book that goes through various types of antennas, but instead of deriving the equations, it uses the tool to explain the operation of those various types of antennas. So if you, of course, this is available through IET, but also with Amazon. But any of the universities that you are in, subscribe to IET Digital Library, it should also be available through that IET Digital Library as well. With that, thank you very much for your time, and I take any questions that you may have. I'll also stop sharing here.
Thank you very much, sir, for such a nice presentation. So audience, if you have any questions, and online participants and offline participants. Any? Mic hai kya? Leke jo. Sir, one question is there.
Sure.
Yeah. Sir, can you please come here?
Yeah, hello, sir. Can you, sir, please illustrate the limitations on the student version?
Very good. That's a good question, I think. Yeah. So in the past, we used to have limitations on the student version, but now from the last 1 year, I guess, we don't have any limitations on the student version. So it's only limited by your computer memory and others. From the software side, that's why we call it no limits student edition. So students can use it without any limitations at all. It's a full version like any commercial customer would buy.
Any other question? Yeah, one more question, please.
Yes, sir. So, sir, what was your thesis when you were in IIT Kharagpur, and that time who was your project guide?
That's a good question, I think. So, though I am now, the computational electromagnetics kind of thing, and I've done a lot of research in that. Back in those days, because there were no tools like this, I worked on what is called microstrip lines and strip lines, and especially the ones on the curved surfaces. We call it cylindrical microstrip lines, where you can put them. At that time, it's not that well understood, but now we can think of it as if we're doing flexible electronics, for example, how the traces, they can be warped, and what happens to its characteristic impedance, and also when two lines are close by, when they're on a cylindrical surface, what happens to the coupling. Of course, we do these things through derivations, at that time using Hankel functions and Bessel functions, and then program that in the computer. But of course, I moved through that, and then when I came to Canada as a postdoc, they asked me to work in non-radiating dielectric waveguides as a postdoc. So that's also not, computational electromagnetics. Then my life changed when I came to NASA Langley, when they asked me to develop computational electromagnetic, the FEM method of movement. So I went through various transitions. So this is also a good point, I guess, for students, is that just because you've done research and PhD in one area does not mean that you cannot learn other things and adapt to the new things that are coming out, and then, take advantage of the opportunities. And your second question about my PhD supervisor, that time it was Dr. Deshpande, Manohar Deshpande, at IIT Kharagpur. I did my PhD at IIT Kharagpur. Dr. Deshpande very briefly worked at IIT Kharagpur, where I was his first PhD student. He was not one of the senior ones. He was one of the most junior professors. We had it. And you always have, this is again one thing maybe students should also understand is there's advantage going to a senior professor to be your PhD thesis supervisor because he's got more experience, more influence, and things like that. At the same time, there's also advantage going to a junior professor or a most junior professor because they can help you better. They'll have more time to spend with you to guide you because senior professors are very busy and with so many students and things like that. So that happened in my case. My PhD supervisor was very cooperative and he helped me a lot initially to get started. Because, by the way, I think he is now back in the US. Even then, I think even during my PhD thesis, he was back in the US and he works at NASA Goddard Space Center now. So maybe a little bit long answer, I guess.
Yes, sir.
Short question. Yeah.
Yes, sir. Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
So yeah, thank you very much, sir, for joining us and sharing a very effective and thoughtful presentation. So now I would like to present a certificate as a token of appreciation. So I would like to just share my screen. Sorry, sir, just a moment here. Now I would like to
Sure.
share my screen to you. Yeah, so this is a certificate of appreciation from MAC 2025 team. And thank you very much, sir. We are very grateful and honored to have you with us. And
Very good.
definitely we look forward for more and more.
Very good. Thank you very much also for inviting me and all the best with the rest of the conference. See you all.
Thank you very much.
Bye.